We're going to probably need to pitch people. I assume you pitch people. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you go about doing that? Especially in the beginning when you're like, I have nobody. Would you like to join? How do you go about that?
Yeah. I think it's just, for me, it was always just a 15-minute, 20-minute conversation. I'm like, I got nothing right now. This is what I want to do. I would love it if you opted in. Here's the vision. And, at no point do you feel committed to this. And we didn't ask for much. All we asked for was essentially like, hey, we want to put you up on our website as a community member. We're going to directly link to your site. We're going to write a LinkedIn post about you. And then we want permission, right, for us to send you pitches for guests every once in a while. And I'm like, if that's not cool, totally understand. I just want to set expectations for this as is. Now, where do I want to see this in like a year or two? This is what I want, right? And that's where the direction we're heading. So just setting expectations for all this stuff. And, I've been around the business world long enough that I just cut straight to it and be like, hey, I'm not trying to sell you anything that I don't have. But here's what I want to do.
Yeah. And what about niching? Should we think about niching like you have? To me, it resonates with me. I like that everybody's in the same category because it feels like everybody's getting some value and you can know your people really well. And I'm not trying to answer the question for you.
Yeah.
I'm thinking through it. If the listener is thinking about creating one, I've seen a lot of podcast communities or networks that have absolutely zero commonality. And so you've done the opposite. How should we look at it if we're listening?
Well, I haven't tried it any other way, Adam. So obviously I see a ton of value in sticking to my lane. We do, the core of our business, our service offerings we're a podcast placement agency specific to fitness, health, and wellness. And we could even say that B2B fitness, health, and wellness media, right? And that clearly defines what we do. People come to us, they understand that we're the specialists in that. And I happen to have found a niche that's growing really fast. And that I happen to know from the last 17 years of my involvement in it. So, I think, it's so case by case and so nuanced to answer that. But yeah, I think having a niche is super valuable. As long as you really understand that niche, and you understand the problems and, you can really commit to it, because it's really easy, as you know, to start to, like, we even had a client who's really wanted to get into pharma. Right. They want to get into the pharma industry and pharma podcasts. And that was a world that we didn't know well. And we gave it a good go. We saw some mild success. The client didn't stick around and, just cut straight to the end of the story here. But because we went a little outside the lane, but I learned a lot. Like, okay, the pharma industry media is very different. Like, they want money. Like, you want to get on their podcast, they want 15 grand, right? I'm like, holy cow, that is not the way, that the wellness and fitness industry works. Like, most of people don't charge to be on a podcast, right? So it was very eye-opening. It was very, different types of people. So I don't regret going down that path, but it was a really learning experience to be like, hey, we can continue to grow within our niche. There's plenty of room to grow there still.
Should we be thinking about getting on other people's podcasts in any industry? And if so, would working with somebody like you, but maybe if the listener has a different podcast, it's not in the health space or anything like that.
Yeah.
How do we find the right person to pay money to so that they can get us booked?
Yeah. I think you get what you pay for, just like anything within the service world. Do you want to get on any podcast? I mean, that's tough. There's some that can have definitely maybe a negative effect, right? If it's not done well, doesn't portray you or your brand the way you want it to. I mean, ultimately, if you're on an interview, it's up to you how you represent yourself. But I think if you're just getting started, right? If you just want to start to hit the podcast circuit, I would take a bunch of them, mainly just for repetition. Like, you may be good at interviewing people. You may be great at recording your own podcast and publishing good content, but being interviewed is a skill, right? Just like interviewing is a skill. So like getting repetitions, and like I was telling someone the other day, like the worst case scenario is that, maybe the interview doesn't go so well, but at least you have some content that someone else developed for you at no charge. Right. So yeah,
well, but with you are a good guest. You work well with being a guest. You answer naturally. And you are talking about being prepared going into this. And that's part of why I'm starting off the question this way.
Yeah.
It's because there's so many people that are on my podcast, and I'll just listen to practically anybody's podcast, and it is the same. There's so many people that I think they got coached how to, really do their interview side, like being interviewee side. And it kind of feels like a sales pitch the whole time. And it feels so scripted that it's hard to feel like it's authentic. And I'm curious what you would share with the listener when you're talking about, being interviewed is a skill. You should be able to do it. And it sounded like you also said to be prepared that on that side.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of thoughts, but is there like too much preparing, or what do you think is really good advice for somebody who's going to be getting interviewed on multiple podcasts on so much? Because many people seem to like want to push something, and it's hard to do that and sound authentic and natural.